and ice, and I have a little bit of a migraine, so the moisture and the pressure in the air always give me a migraine. Excuse me, when we have this kind of weather. Okay, so I believe we're on the inventory module this week. So I'm going to go into the corporation record. I want to go to the Inv Info tab. And you might think, because inventory is so complex, that our configurations would be vast, and that's really not so. Half of this page over here on the right, the warehouse order we believe that this was a mapping out, so to speak, saving space for future enhancement, where they could place orders from a warehouse module. But right now, this is all we have, and it doesn't affect anything, and we don't have a warehouse module. So there's nothing to cover on the right-hand side here under the warehouse order info. And if I go over to the left and I look at the inventory transaction duplicated fields dialog box, there's several fields in here that can be utilized when creating kits in EPMX, or creating kit component transactions, actually. So when you go to inventory and you want to issue a kit, you're going to go to kit component transactions. You're not going to use the inventory transactions screen. Now, these kits have to be set up in advance in the, I believe it's the control files. The screen is a little small. But let's just keep it simple and say that the kits have to be created in advance on another side of EPMX. And once the kits are created, then you can come into EPMX kit component transactions, and you can create an inventory transaction for a kit. You would select a warehouse. I don't think I have any, but let's just take a look. Click on add, choose the shipper and a date, and then you're going to pull in the kit code right here. And what that's going to do is pull in every single item from the kit. So, for example, now I haven't had anybody do this yet except for Isometrics. And Vinny just set it up for them a couple of weeks ago. So I don't know if they're using it yet. I haven't had a chance to follow up, but this isn't something that's commonly used because it's a lot of work to maintain. So once you create the kit, you come over here and you generate a kit component inventory transaction by pulling in the kit code. There's fields in here that can be duplicated as you go through the kit component transaction. So let's say you have a new hire kit. Okay, let's say a new hire kit involves a laptop and a telephone and maybe some office supplies. So you've created the kit on the back end, and now you're issuing this out to employees. You have the ability to enter the consumer field and the receiving department and any of the other fields that were on that corporation screen and have them automatically duplicate for you. Now, I don't know why we would use that in this scenario unless there were multiple kits that are getting issued. So maybe we have a new hire and we're giving them a new hire kit, but they're also part of the maintenance team. So we have a kit for the maintenance department that includes hammers and gloves and nails and sort of standard items that they start with. So then you might want to use that. So if you have transactions that occur regularly like that, figure their site, we can flag it site-wide for the data for all of these accounts to be duplicated as we're creating kit component transactions. Now, I don't know if that's ever going to come up, so I'm not going to go into great detail about it. I think eventually I'll do a separate video on just kits and kits inventory issues of kits. But for now, just knowing that you have the site-wide ability to duplicate fields so that the warehouse folks don't have to continuously type that information is all you need to know. It just speeds up the process for them. Okay. Any questions about that?
Nope.
Okay, great. So some of these configurations over here are self-explanatory. So allow transaction date change. I don't know why you would want to do that, but it seems to be the generic here. To me, coming from an accounting and a control background, I would tell them to take this off. The transaction date is today when I'm recording this transaction. However, if you have a lot of small business customers like we have, sometimes they're like, well, I might not get to it for 3 days. Maybe I gave it to them and I made a note and I need to go in the inventory 3 days later. I want to be able to go back and change the date. Then we would leave that checked. And allow quantity on hand change. What that means is if you go to master file, inventory file, and you pull up an item code, let me do this. Oh, I don't have any inventory in here yet. Okay, so if you pull up an item code and a warehouse code and you click on modify, right here, you can change the quantity on hand. ePMX does generate inventory transactions behind the scenes for you, and I believe it even shows up on a report to confirm that because it's been a while since I looked at it, but this isn't where you want your users to change the quantity on hand. You're going to want them to generate an inventory transaction. Now, of course, like anything else, we probably had somebody who wanted their users to be able to do this. So it can be done. It's not our recommended practice, but it is an option to be able to change it here. Okay. There's no justification when you change it here, I guess, is the important thing to know. Whereas if you force them to create an inventory transaction, they're forced to enter like the consumer field. Who did you give it to? Or a little note about why did you make this adjustment, right? So I wouldn't recommend that people do it this way. But if you're talking to customers, potential customers, it's an option. And then you can let me dig down into the reasons why they shouldn't do it, or to ask them more questions to understand why they feel they need to do it. Okay? And date required, that's kind of self-explanatory. We do track lot numbers. We don't push this a lot. It's more of a talking point, and we've actually had a lot of support tickets about lot numbers. But we do have a lot number tracking option. You flag the item as a lot number tracking in the material file. I believe it cannot be used with serial number tracking. It's either or. And I don't know why you would want to use it as an asset, but I don't believe you can also track it as an asset with an expiration date. So it's exclusive to this in the inventory file. Lot numbers are things like perishables, like anything with an expiration date, food, medicines. We've used this with medicines, like a PMR. I think you may have had a conversation with him. So I'm not sure if he's still using this, but we did have some items set up for lot number expiration. This requires an expiration date be entered before you can save the transaction. Max, we do have our software. It's my understanding, based on feedback from Thomas, that we do use the first in, first out inventory reporting method. There's PMX records. We do have some very specific reports that users can use, and we do have to enable them. I think it's just this one configuration, enable FIFO reporting. Once you enable FIFO reporting and you save this, when you go into inventory reports, you're going to see the 2 FIFO reports available. That is not a default. We have to go in here and we have to turn it on for them. I don't know if there's, let's take a look, if there's actual help in here about this, because this is relatively new. Whoops, I have to use this search bar. Yeah, I don't think it's in here yet because the customer we created it for, is not using it right now. They paid us $13,000 to create this FIFO reporting, and we were never able to get them to finally sign off on it and give us some feedback. We kept getting, we're too busy, we're too busy. That was a good couple of years ago, maybe even 3 years ago. But the customer is Cabris Marine, just for your information. Okay, so if you ever need the calculations and the formulas, let me know and I'll pull my notes because I'm the one that to Jeannie so we can get that in help. Going a little bit slow here. Okay, so that's what the FIFO reporting checkmark is about. Shipper default as user means when you log into inventory, your name automatically fills and it can't be changed. A lot of people do put a check mark there. Disable auto issue. As you know, we have some auto features in EPMX where we can do auto approve, auto reject, and we can auto issue, auto receive. And that's exactly what this is. This enables them to just quickly go through and click auto receive for everything that's in their queue or everything that's in that order without having to manually enter or verify what's in the packaging. Now, in inventory, we have some methods for tracking inventory and reordering items. And if you set a min-max quantity, then EPMX will display a message for you when the quantity on hand is below the minimum. So we would configure that here. We would put a check mark here if they're using min-max. We also have a reorder point. So in the inventory file, you can enter every time my quantity on hand reaches 5, add this to my inventory reorder report. So when it comes to inventory, it's either or. We don't use both.
Okay.
Okay. There's a few ways to, when you have a reorder point established, there's a few ways to, EPMX can actually create requisitions for you, approved requisitions that are then become available in your a reorder. So there's a few options with that here. You can choose the primary or alternate vendor, or you can choose primary vendor always. So they have choices is really what you need to know about how that happens. And then, of course, do they want the email alerts? We have to configure the email alerts here. We can, if we have inventories flagged in EPMX, we can just simply email the buyer, or we can choose one email address, which is, as you know, I've already said this, which is what I recommend, purchasing at xyzcompany.com. And then we pull that into here, and all emails go to that email address, and that enables more than one person to become alerted that items are needed to be reordered. So the final item on the inventory info screen is how to calculate inventory costs. You can calculate it at the material receipt or at invoice entry. So, you can include freight, you can include tax, or you can include tax and freight for either one of those options. So when customers have inventory, this is something that we discuss with them. But for your purposes, just be aware that those are their two options. You can calculate it at the material receipt or at the point of the invoice. Okay. So that's it for inventory info. Is there any questions that have come up that you guys would like to discuss? Do you have any questions about the things that we talked about today?
Nothing at my end. Yeah, Tammy, Aiden here. When it comes to getting the display message, so is it the requisitioner who gets that message or the approver? In terms of minimum quantity and reorder points.
That's a good question. I don't remember where throughout the software it comes, but give me 1 second and then let me see if it's in suggested vendor in inventory reorder requisitions. Choose one of the following from the list to indicate how you want the system to assign suggested vendors. Okay, it doesn't say in the help menu. I think that the message comes up. I'm going to put a check mark in here. Oh, I don't have these set up in my site yet, so I'm really sorry, Aiden, because this is a brand new site that I created for this purpose, but for training purposes. But if you go in and you set this and you pick one item and you set an inventory reorder point, then go ahead in and create a requisition. And then I think you can hover over, I'm not sure, but you might be able to hover over somewhere. There might be a question mark icon that shows up here, like in the stock requisitions, where you can just hover over it and it will tell you. I think that's how it works, but I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, and then go ahead and approve it and look at the approval screen, from requisitions approver.
Right.
And I would also go to purchasing and do the same thing and see how it works if you're doing just the PO, because not everybody has requisitions.
Sure.
Okay. All right. So any other questions?
Nope. Good for now.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll keep it short this time. And if you know where to find me if anything comes up.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much,
Tammy.
Tammy.
Thank you.
Thanks,
I'll see you guys next week. Thanks, Karan, Aiden. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.